At this time last year, almost a quarter of Nebraska's soybeans were turning color. While late planting and a cooler summer have slowed progress, the condition of this year's beans is far superior to 2012. 2013 beans are 51 percentage points better in the good or excellent categories compared to late August last year. At this time in the growing season and even throughout, growers can be observing their soybean plants to see how they're using nitrogen from the soil. While we may normally talk about applying and using N for corn, Bob Klein says beans may need more than you think.
They use a lot of nitrogen. It's unbelievable how much they use. And an average soybean yield will take up 315 pounds of nitrogen. About 60% of that goes into the seed, which is about 190 pounds, and then the other 40%, or about 125 pounds, goes in the stover. So the soybean plant has to have a lot of nitrogen available, and we get this produced by the nodules on the roots and so forth. If we don't have those nodules, we can have quite nitrogen deficiency in our soybeans.
Describe to me how important it is throughout the season and at this point to check out those nodules and see what they look like.
Yeah, and we want to do this fairly early in the season because we do sometimes rescue them by putting on additional nitrogen. Put on nitrogen real early does not help, but put on flowering to the pod fill stage has helped somewhat, not near as much as good inoculation. We've seen yield increases from about 24 to 32% by applying 50 to 100 pounds of nitrogen later in the season. That's flowering to the pod fill stage. We're running some tests on that. I know Michigan found out where soybeans were well inoculated compared to, they weren't inoculated well. There was a 45% difference in yield. Now, we would expect a bigger difference in yield in Nebraska than here because they got a lot more higher organic matter in Michigan in most areas than we have in Nebraska, and therefore they get more mineralization from the organic matter, which helps the soybeans.
And even from the field sometimes, Bob, you can kind of tell the difference between what fields had some N in there and which didn't?
Yeah, you can really tell that now on a couple of pictures that we have here. Inoculant was mixed with the seed, but in this particular case, some of the seed did not get inoculated well, and so you could see right to the row of the planter. On one of the samples there's no nodules on it. On the other one, the soybeans, and just moving over to another set of rows, are well nodulated. And you can really see that in the field. This was a 12-row planter that was used, and you can just see those 12 rows sticking out there, the ones that are well nodulated and the ones that don't have any nodules on. So there's some big differences, and I'm sure there'll be some big differences in yields.
Okay, if you were going to go out to the field and dig a plant up, what's the process you need to do to look at that nodule and cut through it?
Yeah, you want to take a good spade out there. Just don't pull up the soybeans because you'll knock off a lot of the nodules in the process. So dig them up with a spade and then either wash the soil off or shake it off. It depends how much it's sticking with soil moisture content. And then check for the nodules, and you'll see, like in this picture, if you got real good nodules, there'll be a lot of them. And in some pictures here as we see them, part of the plants we have there, the three that are well nodulated. There's a lot of nodules on there. And it's surprising how many people are bringing in soybean samples for us to look at and that are not doing well. And in most of those cases, they have very few nodules on. And so those fields would benefit from some applications of nitrogen, but that's expensive. And then it's almost getting too late for much of it this year.